Okay, guys, hello, my name is Manuel Peña, and I'm going to be talking about this novel, The Diaries of Adam and Eve, by the writer Mark Twain. Let's start talking about this novel a little bit. So, basically, in this novel by the writer from the United States, Mark Twain, we will perceive this subject so sensitive by the religion for society from a different point of view, of course, where we can appreciate how Adam and Eve perceived the days in the famous Garden of Eden, where we're going to find aspects that are going to make us laugh from both aspects, Adam and Eve. Darkness, love, and other feelings and emotions that will make this novel a very pleasant reading for the readers for Adam and Eve. It is not exactly a mockery or an indecent criticism, much less the mockery of the same biblical plot at all. But yes, and with more force, a humorous interpretation of man's creation in Hebrew beliefs. In one of his best sense of black humor, this record is so characteristic of his style that he stands out in this satire. Okay, now let's move on to the Mark Twain part, and let's talk about Mark Twain writing style. So this man right here, Mark Twain, is known by his satirical writing. It brings to light issues that happen in the humanity with a comical sense in it. In this novel, the readers observe Adam and Eve trying to understand the way of being of each other, the differences between men and women. Now let's talk about the literary elements, initiating with the plot. In this novel, we're gonna have two plots. We're gonna have Adam's plot and Eve's plot, which are totally different. Let's start with Adam's plot, and we're gonna start, of course, with the exposition. So this novel begins with when Adam knows a new person. This person is gonna be Eve, the woman. Then we have the racing action. So in the racing action, he begins to feel annoying by how much this new person, Eve, talks. All her actions seem stupid, strange to be alone as before, with no one to share his place before with. But now with the arrival of this woman, everything changed for him and his old way of living in the Garden of Eden. Now let's talk about the climax. So basically he tries to leave and run away several times to get away from her and be alone. But he never makes it because she chases him and always finds him. But once he managed to do it. And after several days he realized that something is missing and it is her. And there when he understands that the voice of she and he basically her and understand that he missed those times. And even though it seems to be annoying, he really feels lost without his company. The company of Eve seems to be something that caught him, and he feels that feeling inside of him of being with her. The following action, then we have that when he realized that he missed her, there was going to be something different that he will need, and that was Eve. So he returns with her, and together they basically undertake their life together, exercises their roles as a woman and man before the world. A role that they understood was suitable for a man and woman, and that everyone was responsible for them. They had what they call new species, which was actually their children's, Cain and Abel. I know you have heard about those names before on the Bible. And so they live with each other as normally. So here we have the resolution. After all that has happened and this very uneven inception, they accept that love goes beyond what we see at first sight. And their differences both learn to love themselves above the problems that could separate them. Okay, now let's move on to Eve's part, and let's talk about plot of Eve's Diary. Let's begin with the exposition. So in this part, Eve was created and she arrived at Earth. And with this part, Eve's Diaries begins. Then we have the rising action. So she started analyzing the world and wondering her purpose in it. She discovered Adam and felt something about him that she cannot describe and started following him everywhere he goes and trying to make him feel important in front of Adam's Eve's. The climax. So the climax started when Eve discovered negative emotions. She found that Adam is not basically treating her as she was expecting. He goes away every time that he saw her approaching him. When she talked to him, he never paid attention to her, and she started also feeling fear, something that she has never felt before. The following action. When she discovered those negative feelings, she begins to have a better understanding of life and noticing not always as beautiful as she thought. She became more aware and started accepting Adam as he is. And then we got the resolution. After all that has happened and this very uneven inception, they accept that love goes beyond what see at first sight and their differences. Both learn to love themselves above the problems that could separate them. Now, here we have the characters, the settings, the theme, point of view. So, when we talk about the characters, we of course have to know we're gonna be talking about Adam and Eve. So Adam was the first. He likes to be alone and initially felt comfortable in Eve's presences. He would rather work on his property, drive waterfalls, or travel around Eden than spend time with her. He slowly came to admire Eve's position for the world, her curiosity and her willingness to care for every creature around her, and his love for her every day was the fact that makes him feel and think different about her. Now, Eve is a very curious and constantly try to understand the world and try uh, all the creatures around her in a good way. She was creative, sensitive, and caring, but she talks a lot and tries to win Adam's heart by sharing ideas with Adam and decorating his property. She is the one who was seducing him by the snake, but tried to make it look different and tried to feel like it was Adam's fault. Now let's talk about the settings. In this case, the setting was the garden, the world as it was created in its beginnings, and when everything was in peace, love, tranquility, and everything worked in a suitable way. The theme. This novel portrayed gender, stereotypes, love, curiosity, and companionship. How you acquire knowledge of life through experience. How life can disappoint you in seconds. The need to have a companion and the nature of purity before being corrupted. As men and women perceive the world so differently. The characteristic of women and men make them see the world very different and develop in the united but each in a different, we may say, way. The meaning of life, or at least the sought after of this. And then we have the last part, which is the point of view. So the point of view, it is written in the perspective of Eve and Adam. The reader follows them in the way they observe things out there and how they describe each other. The reader sees the world in different perspectives instead of one of someone who has lived longer. Now, let's move on to the next part. the literary devices. Here we're gonna see some literary devices such as symbolism, paradox, onomatopoeia, alliteration, metaphor, foreshadowing, irony, personification, and so on. Okay, here we have a metaphor. Listen, it says, I feel like an experiment. I feel exactly like an experiment. It would be impossible for a person to feel more like an experiment than I do. And so I'm coming to feel convinced that it is what I experiment, just an experiment and nothing more. So in this case, she was trying, because we're talking about ifs, she's trying to say that she was feeling used, because she was there just to see how things works. Basically, when a person use a thing, right, to verify if it works or not. Now here we have three simile. The first one says, it has no hips. It tapers like a carrot. When it's 10, it spreads itself apart like a berry. So I think it is a reptile, though it may be architecture. In this case, this simile is basically comparing. Uh, she was trying to describe an animal and try to guess what the animal was. But she was trying to compare the animal with different things by figuring out what it was. Another says, it is not one of us, for it doesn't walk, it is not a bird, for it doesn't fly, it is not a frog, for it doesn't hop, it is not a snake, for it doesn't crawl. I feel sure it is not a fish, though cannot get a chance to find out whether it can swim or not. In my judgment, it is either an enigma or some kind of bug. In this case, we're talking about Adam. Adam was trying to figure out what one thing at that precise moment was. If I'm not mistaken, he was talking about one of his kids, and he was comparing with different animals in order for him to find out what the kid was. And we have another one. It says, I was going to stuff one of them for my collection, but she's prejudiced against it for some reason or other. So I have relinquished the idea. So I think it is a mistake. It would be irreparable loss to science if they should get away. The old one is dumber than it was and can laugh and talk like the parrot. Having learned this, no doubt, for being with the parrot so much and having the imitative faculty in a highly developed degree. In this case, he's comparing his other son, and he says like, this one it looks different because it's quieter than the previous one, and he started comparing also the first one because he says that this one does not talk a lot as the previous one, but the first one talk a lot like a parrot. Now, let's move to the irony. So this one that I found says, when I found it could talk, I felt a new interest in it. For I love to talk, I talk all day, and I sleep too. And I'm very interested. But if I had another to talk to, I could be twice as interesting and would never stop if desired. So in this irony is very important for me, and it was like at the same time kind of fun because remember that Adam didn't like that she talk a lot. She didn't like it. I mean, he didn't like it at all. But in the other side, we have that she talks a lot, and she loved the the fact of that. But the irony in this case is these differences, these opposite things that makes her love him, and the fact that that thing that makes her love him is precisely the fact that makes him see her differently and like stupidly. Let's talk about this imagery. We have two different imageries in this case. The first one says, I was thinking about the falls. and I said to myself, how wonderful it is to see the vast body of water tumble down there. Then, in an instant, a bright thought flashes into my head, and let it fly, saying, it would be a deal more wonderful to see tumble up there. And I was just about to kill myself with laughing, and when all nature broke loose in war and death, and I have to flee for my life. Okay, in this case, we may, at the same time we're reading, have an image of the things that he was talking about nature, talking about the falls, and so on. Another another one is everything looks better today than it did yesterday. In the rush of fishing up yesterday, the mountains were left in a wretched condition, and some of the plains were so cluttered with rubbish and remnant. Too many stars in some places and not enough in others. Moon get loose last night and slid down and fell out of the scheme a very great loss. It breaks my heart to think of it. Here the same thing happened when I was reading this part. I was like having an image of the moon, the stars, he when he was fishing, of the mountain. So this may take you and got your mind thinking about that, having a portray what he was talking about that moment. Okay, also we have personification. It says, she accuses me of being the cause of our disaster. She says, with apparent sincerity and threat, that the serpent assured her that the forbidden fruit was not apple, it was chestnuts. I said I was innocent then, for I had not eaten any chestnut. She said the serpent informed her that chestnut was a figurative term, meaning an aged and motley Joe. In this personification, we clearly may see how a serpent and a snake is able to talk, which is not something normal. So we are giving a personification to an animal, and that thing is that the snake is able to talk. And I also found one alliteration. It says, the new creature says, its name is Eve. That's all right. I have no objection. I said it was superfluous then. The world evidently raised me in its respect, and it needed. Then it says, it is a large, good world will be repetition. It says, it is not it. It is she. This probably doubtful, yet it is all one to me was she were nothing to me if she would but go by herself and not talk. In this case, we may see the repetition of a word that sound the same when we find the word it in different places, and it's repeated and repeated a lot of times. So guys, with this we finally complete the exposition about this novel written by Mark Twain. I hope you like it, and I also suggest you to take a look because it's gonna be very fun. It's also very short. It will not take you more than 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But it's very funny because we might see how differently a man and a woman think, and that's something that precisely happen nowadays in real life. Yep, how their different mood of perceiving the world is. So thank you so much once again, and have a wonderful rest of the night.